The journey to America for the Masamitsu family began when Asago Masamitsu, at age 16, emigrated from Kochi, Japan, to work at a plantation in Hilo in 1903. He then moved on to California to start an onion and potato farm with friends. Tony Teruo Masamitsu was born on August 13, 1927, in California as the sixth and youngest Masamitsu child. Asago had prospered enough to move his family back to Japan, but the family returned to California when the Great Depression hit the entire world in the 1930s. The Masamitsus prevailed, however, and by 1937 had accumulated enough wealth to buy a Dodge, the car of choice for Japanese immigrants in the Los Angeles area. All went well until the war began in 1941, and Executive Order 9066, issued by President Franklin Roosevelt, called for the internment of people of Japanese ancestry. Asago was incarcerated at the LA County Jail during the war, while the rest of the Masamitsus were sent to Camp Manzanar. They were reunited upon their release, and the family went east to New Jersey and worked at a frozen food plant. Tony graduated high school in New Jersey in 1946 and was drafted into the Army in 1947. He was sent to the Monterey Institute for Japanese Language Training, then stationed in Japan as a language specialist. Upon his discharge, Tony moved back to Washington, D.C., where the family now operated a grocery store. Taking advantage of the GI Bill, Tony entered Georgetown University and became an exchange student at Keio University in Tokyo. When his GI Bill ran out in 1954, Tony was flat broke, and not wanting to ask his parents for a return ticket to America, found a civil service job and left Tokyo for Busan, Korea. He eventually returned to Tokyo, and after spending over 10 years in civil service, he met and married his wife, Norie. In order to support a family in the future, Tony considered opening a Chicken Delight franchise in the States, but was coaxed by friends into staying in Japan and went into the business of selling cars instead. The timing was perfect to secure a car dealership in Japan because Honda had just entered the car market after much success in the motorcycle industry. The manufacturer was looking for dealers who were willing to take risks. Taking a chance on this, Tony opened the first Tony Honda dealership in Chigasaki, Japan in 1967. A humble beginning would best describe the dealership, which started with only one desk and 3 employees. Not to mention that Honda offered only one model and a choice of 2 colors.
At first, we didn't have to have an office for, big office or anything. There was only 4 of us running the dealership because we didn't have to have a showroom. We didn't have to have a parts department, a service department, anything. Just one 8x8 prefab building, a couple of desks and a couple of chairs, and that was it.
Although Tony could speak Japanese, his reading skills weren't good enough to read difficult company manuals, so Norie read and recorded the details for Tony on a tape recorder. The dealership would not have succeeded had it not been for Norie's diligence. The dealership was a success from the beginning and went on to be one of the top Honda dealerships in Eastern Japan. Tony and Norie's 3 children were born in Japan, and the family would eventually relocate to Hawaii when Tony was granted the Hawaii franchise for Honda. The Masamitsus decided to move to Hawaii after discovering on a trip to California that their son Stan's severe asthma symptoms would disappear outside of Japan.
Before we even got to California, and that's only, 10 hours, Stan just felt pretty good, and he doesn't want to take the medicine anymore. Because as we got going, we kind of forgot about his sickness, And in Hawaii, our last stop was Hawaii, and it seems like he was completely cured.
Tony Honda Waipahu was opened in 1977, and it was the era for the Civic and the Accord.
In Consumer Report, the magazine, rated Accord one of the best car they ever, tested. In that article alone, the people would just flock to the dealership to put in their order, trying to get their car. I think that was a real easy time for us because the car just sold by itself.
Well, I think Honda's always, they've never really changed their focus. And their focus has always been about the fuel efficiency and the cars having a good balance between being practical and fun to drive. And from day one, they never really swayed from that focus.
After the Hawaii dealership, more Tony dealerships followed in Northern California, then the move to Pearl Ridge, and a shot at selling Oldsmobiles on Kapiolani Boulevard in 1983. By the 1990s, the business had expanded to include Nissan, Volkswagen, and Mazda. And then in 2001, the ambitious undertaking of opening Hawaii's first and only auto mall, the Tony Group Autoplex.
It's new for here, but it's I would say it's an old concept, but it was already an existing concept on the mainland. And basically, it's a shopping center for cars, but we did own the entire complex. Whereas on the mainland, a lot of these malls are, each dealership is owned by different entities.
Stan Masamitsu was named president of the Tony Group in 1996, and Tony retired in 1999. We asked Stan about how he trained for the job.
Just working. I mean, growing up, you look at car brochures all the time, and my dad would bring new cars home all the time, and I'm just climbing in and out of those cars, and you end up, before you learn how to drive, then you're out there. Maybe, I went to college, majored in business, but wasn't necessarily the dealership business in particular. But then, then once I got out, sold cars and worked in a warehouse and went to what they call a dealer academy.
As with all businesses, the Tony Group was not without its scars when Hawaii was affected by the 1991 bubble economy in Japan, the first Gulf War, and the lost decade in the 90s. However, as the second generation, Stan has much praise for his dad.
Because I don't think I could have started, what my dad had started. Because you start from scratch. You have to not only do you have to do from just establishing a company, you got to hire employees and market yourself and all that. Although he was raised in the States, he basically came back after 25 years. It's in another country, and having a wife and 3 kids in tow, and just getting started in a city that he's never lived in. I don't think I could have done that.
However, as a seasoned player in a rough economy, Stan had this to say about the future.
We've been in business for over 30 years here, including 10 in Japan. So we're probably the only dealer or the dealer family that kind of have that little bit of dual backgrounds. And I don't know if that makes us better, but it certainly makes us a little different. And last, I think, is the relationship that we have with the people around us. All of our businesses are now here, so we're pretty focused on supporting the local community as well.
When I started a dealership, I didn't know nothing about car business. But at least he worked in my dealership. He's got a college degree. He went to this dealership school, which is the 1-year school. So I figured as far as education is concerned, he must be pretty well equipped. I was kind of in doubt at first, but I figure as long as the bank don't call me, it's okay.
In retirement, Tony is surrounded by family and friends and spends much of his time traveling back and forth to Japan with Norie. The Masamitsu daughters Lillian and Janet are on their own utilizing their artistic talents. For the love of cars, starting with the family Dodge in the 1930s, the Masamitsu family and the Tony Group continue their sometimes bumpy but otherwise joyous ride. The Honolulu Japanese Chamber of Commerce is proud to honor the legacy of the Masamitsus and wish them more of the best in the future.